to give a little bit of an update on our journey this morning. We left the town of L'Aber Wrac'h, the marina there, about an hour ago. It's about 8:20, and it's now 9:20, and we're sailing round to Camerat. Today is quite a technical sail because we have to pass through an area called the Chenal du Four, which has got quite a notorious reputation. It is affected by tide streams significantly, so it can run very fast through there. You can get up to 5 knots of tide sort of pushing through there, which means if we're sailing at 5 knots, you get sort of 10 knots of speed, which means you're quite motoring along. The weather today is quite calm. There's about sort of 8 to 10 knots of wind, gusting a little bit higher, but it doesn't seem to be gusting very much. The only challenge we've got is that when we go through the Chenal du Four, we will have the tide going with us, and the wind is going to be slightly against us, which creates a situation called wind over tide. And wind over tide can really sort of create sharp waves. So even though the sort of natural state of the sea, the waves that are coming in across the Atlantic, are quite small and benign, what is quite likely to happen, because there's the tide rushing through and the wind going in the opposite direction, is you get these steep, quite sort of angry waves. So to mitigate that, we are going through quite late. Normally what you do is you plan to get there as early as possible, and as soon as the tide starts going your way, you kind of just go through and then you're done. We're aiming to arrive there a little bit late, so that when we get to kind of the worst bit, the race, which is by a lighthouse towards the bottom of the Chenal du Four, actually the tide will be slackening off, so it might only be 2 or 3 knots going through, and that way the sort of wind over tide is not as strong. So in theory that will mean less waves. For us, Clare and I, we've never done anything quite like this before. Whenever we've gone through tidal races, as they're known, and we've done Alderney, we've done the Lizard, and we've done a couple of others, we've always just had really calm conditions. We've had the wind going the same way as the tide. It's been like a mill pond. So we've, through a combination of timing it right and luck, we've never really had it rough. So we don't quite know what to expect today. We're really unsure if it's going to be just a little bit rough, or actually it's going to be a bit scary rough. So we'll get to see that in about 3 hours' time. The good news is we are far from alone. Lots of boats, maybe 8 or 10 boats, set off at a similar time from us, from L'Aber Wrac'h round to Camerat. They're all doing the same thing. They're all going down the Chenal du Four. We're not at the front of those boats. We're not at the back of those boats. We're somewhere in the middle. So it feels like we're making a sensible decision at the same time as lots of other people. And there are smaller boats than us doing it as well. And so if there is rough, they will have it much worse than we will. Another interesting thing is we met another boat called Aquila last night. So as we were heading into the marina, we heard on the radio someone saying they were Aquila, and they were only 10 minutes ahead of us. So as we went in, we were like a second Aquila going into the marina, so it must have been a bit confusing for the marina staff on the radio. But yeah, we had a chat with those guys last night, and we've been chatting to them on the radio this morning. They're a similar sized boat to us, slightly smaller but similar, and they're doing exactly the same as us. In fact, they're just, I don't know if you can see them, they're just behind me. Over my shoulder over there, and they're going to be going through at a similar time. We're going to be keeping in touch, so if it does get nasty, or if it does get we want to turn back or anything like that, we can have a chat with some fellow sailors and feel comforted by that and make the right decision. But for now, honestly, it's a really, really relaxed sail. We've got the wind on the beam, we've got all our sails out, we've got our Yankee sail at the front and our main sail all the way out. We're only going about 4 knots through the water, but that's fine. We're not in a hurry. As I say, we want to arrive at the Chenal du Four a bit later than you'd normally do, so bumping along or bumbling along at this gentle speed right now is fine. And those guys on the horizon who are ahead of us, they're probably like an hour ahead of us, they're the ones who are going to go through, and it'll be a bit more bumpy. So if they don't come back and they keep on going through it and we can watch them on AIS, then we know it's all okay. So yeah, it's technical, but it shouldn't be scary. It should be fine because we've made a plan, and the plan seems good, and lots of other people are doing a similar plan that they've independently created, so yeah, should all be good. That's it for now. as we're sailing along quite gently now, just about 4 or 5 knots through the water, but because the wind is sort of coming slightly from behind us on the side, we're not really heeled over very much, and the waves aren't so bad, so it's quite relaxing really. So what happens is, at times like this, is while I'm on watch keeping an eye on things, someone else is down here being a worker bee. What are you up to?
I am editing and writing blogs while we're underway. It's really gentle, so it's a really good time to catch up on things. We've got really good internet. We're not far from the coast, and the Wi-Fi's working well, so it's a good opportunity to get some stuff done.
And you're literally sat there with your laptop on top of the charts that we use to monitor our position.
Yeah.
So Claire takes regular fixes once every like half an hour to an hour. She'll look at our GPS position, look at the time, and then mark it on a map, and then we see how we're doing against the course, don't we? And you also log it in your special ship's logbook. Very good. I'll leave you to it anyway, because there's currently no one on watch. So yeah, what's interesting is, you know, for a couple of minutes there, we were just, you know, the boat wasn't being looked after. But in things like this, in situations like this, you know, boats don't go that fast. You probably have got a couple of minutes before anything significant happens. So you take a look on the horizon, look where you're going, take a good 360 look around you before you pop down, and then you know you're probably all right for a few minutes. And right now, yeah, there's very little ahead of us apart from, I think there's a fishing boat somewhere, small fishing boat somewhere in the distance. We need to make sure we don't hit him, but he looks like he's like half an hour away before we need to worry about that. And if we have a look behind us, which is a bit tricky, we have to look underneath our tender. There's a variety of boats, 3 boats actually, sort of coming behind us, who look like they're catching us up. Actually, they must be doing something special with their sails, because they look like they definitely look like they're catching us up. I might need to do some trimming to see if we can speed up a bit. It's now a couple of hours later. We're just entering the Chenal du Four, and we've actually put our head sail away and put the engine away, actually to slow down weirdly. We were going too fast and approaching it a little bit too early, so we pointed directly into the wind and just gone on engine, fairly steady, we're only going 4 knots. Just behind me over here, and if you can see that over there, that's the ferry, Brittany ferries. I haven't actually looked at which one it is, but potentially it's the one that goes from Plymouth to Santander, which is kind of what we're doing, but like they'll be there like tonight, maybe tomorrow, whereas yeah, we're going to be there in about a month's time, maybe 2 months time. So yeah, just a different kind of speed. A lot of the other boats are kind of caught up with us and overtook us. There's 2 or 3 boats behind us there, but there's other boats way off in the distance behind us and other boats way off in front of us. So I guess we're still in the middle of the pack, but we've got a plan and we're sticking to it. We don't want to go too fast, we don't want to get there too early. I'd rather go in behind those other boats and arrive at the race a little bit slower than press on and try and stay in the middle of the pack and get there earlier than I want to. So there you go. We're just starting to enter the top of the Chenal du Four now, and I don't know if you can see on this video or hear over the noise of the wind, but the sea stay has shifted, and the waves, or sorry, I should say the swell hasn't got bigger, but what you can maybe see there is that we've got a little bit of wind over tide. We've got about maybe just over half a knot of tide pushing us along, but the wind is blowing at about 15 knots on our nose, and yeah, when they're sort of going in opposite directions, it just makes the sort of makes the wave shape change. So rather than just rolling swell, we've now got these mini little peaks, and that's caused by the wind over tide. This is really just the start of it, because this is gentle tide, but as we go further into it, we're going to get up to about 3 knots of tide with us, so that should really get going. So it's probably going to be a little bit bumpy. We are now in the middle of the Chenal du Four, allegedly the kind of most notorious bit, and it's windy, but actually the sea is really calm. So there's a green channel marker over there and a big red channel marker in that direction, and we've just passed between the two, and that's kind of the tightest pinch point in the Chenal du Four. And yeah, the sea is just remarkably calm. Remarkably calm. So I'm really glad that we went today and didn't delay for another day. So we're just sailing along nicely. We're close hauled, with about 16 knots of wind apparent. We're only going about 4.5 knots through the water, but that's actually equating to an amazing 8 knots of speed over ground. So we're getting a good 3 or so knots of current pushing us along with wind over tide, which would normally result in big waves, and it's absolutely fine. There's just little ripplets on the water. There is nothing I would call a wave. So that's fantastic. I'm so glad we went today, and we made a plan, we stuck to it, and it's worked out well for us. We're now just at the bottom of the Chenal du Four. It's actually all behind us. That's like the lighthouse at the very bottom of it that marks it, and there's a sort of a channel marker, looks like a mini lighthouse that we just needed to make round. And this is actually the roughest bit of the journey we've had so far. Because of the angles involved, we've had to put the motor on just to keep us going. We're actually motor sailing at the moment to power us through it a bit. It's not too bad, nothing like we had the other day. It's definitely a bit lumpy, as they say, and getting a bit of yeah, the anchor's getting wet, let's put it that way. Just bashing through these waves a little bit. I'm hoping once we turn the corner these will ease off, because we'll be out of the channel. But yeah, these are just making us bounce up and down a little bit. We've now reached the end of our journey. We are tied up on the dock in Camerat, just on the inside of the outside pontoon, if that makes sense. Thankfully we just kind of got the last spot, which was a bit of luck, because otherwise, well, I don't know quite what we'd have done. Probably there's other spots somewhere else in the marina, but it looks pretty full. We might have been rafting up. But there you go. We got here all safe and sound. Not as much jeopardy as we were expecting, which is a bonus, to be honest. And yeah, that was the Chenal du Four sailing day.